Hey everybody, welcome to the Devy Dose. I hope you're having a good Sunday and you're getting to watch some football. I'm your host, Eric. You can find me on Twitter at EKBaller, and I have some fantastic friends on today. Uh, my frequent co-host here, Jeff, the Sofa Scout. Jeff, you want to say hi?
Yeah, how's everybody going? It's good to get back on here. I think after a hiatus last week, the life caught up with me there.
Yeah, and today we have an extra special guest, the one and only Noah at No More Parties. Noah More Parties. Noah, you want to say hi?
Yeah, how's it going? I appreciate you guys having me on. Yeah, I guess I neglected to put my handle on there, but yeah, I'm on Twitter at No More Parties. Hopefully, learning a little bit of film today, so should be a good time.
Yeah, great. Well, another great weekend of football here, and some good games. You have anything that stuck out to you this week, Jeff? Anything that was especially fun?
I mean, the biggest thing that had people talking, I think, was the Penn State game there, and I guess what the word out there was their Super Bowl, right? Just I think I had said it, in a show last weekend that they don't really have much to play for on the season, and I thought maybe we'd start seeing Drew LR after he came in the previous weekend.
You think
And
so?
I don't know, maybe they just didn't trust it on a game like this, but still waiting to for them to just go ahead and make that transition, because Sean Clifford, the enigma that he is. And for as tough as as Ohio State is, I think Penn State made that a pretty good game. And at least that made for an exciting morning, at least here on the West Coast.
Yeah, that was a fun game. That was the one that I recorded and watched as I was cutting up other film, and of course, the star who's only continuing to rise in his orbit, Marvin Harrison Jr. with it was like a 10-185 line and multiple highlight worthy plays. Man, the kid is fun to watch. No, you said you didn't get to watch that much this weekend.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. Yeah, no, it was a chores and visiting family day yesterday, so I didn't get to watch a lot of football, but just kind of perusing through the box scores, a couple of them stood out to me from running backs in particular. Zach Charbonnet against Stanford, almost 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. And what I like to see especially is how involved and productive he was in the passing game. He had over 60 yards on 5 catches. And then Quinshawn Judkins against A&M, 34 carries, 200 yards, a touchdown. The kid he's just an absolute workhorse already. He's got NFL size. He's just an absolute stud. That's just such an impressive line for a true freshman to step in and really dominate a game like that against a legitimate SEC opponent. So
yeah, against a team that's got a lot of 4- and 5-star guys on the other side of the ball too.
And
force of nature.
We've seen him have big games like this with Zach Evans injured and sitting like this. I don't know if Zach Evans got injured in the middle of the game because I didn't have eyes on that whole one, but it's not like Evans was having a bad game. It's just that
he was active
just Judkins just went. It's looks like a full takeover by now.
Mm-hmm. And Evans is a stud. Evans is a legitimate running back prospect himself, and he's just getting his lunch stolen by this kid.
Maybe we'll get to him when the rankings are not, but I noticed that Eric didn't have him. I was like, I have to put him in somewhere, but it's such a hard spot at this point.
What, Judkins?
Oh no, Evans.
Oh, I forgot to put Evans in there.
Oh, you didn't have him in there for anyways.
No, I copied them out of the Campus to Canton rankings, but I had to copy and paste. You can't just pull the table. So
yeah,
I probably just missed it. I love Evans too, and I love Charbonnet. We're gonna get to some Charbonnet film later. That was one of the things I was working on this weekend, was cutting up his game against Washington. And it's same thing you said there, Noah. He had plenty of passing game work, not 5 catches, but a couple really nice ones. And I've always been I've always thought that his hands are underrated, right? That he gets his reputation as just a smash into the line and power back, and that's not what I see out of his game. I think he offers a lot more than that. So yeah, I mean, some stars of the week. I think Noah kind of let us off with that, and no doubt that those two are studs. Last week, Jeff, one of my friends, razzed me a little bit for throwing Parker Washington out, just for being excited that he got involved in the game at all, because it's been 4 catches, 40 yards for him. So I was pleased to see him go off this weekend, and I think that's what we all expected from him this year, was to see these big games with him dominating target share, and that's not really been the story so far. The other guys that I had on my list was Audric Estime from Notre Dame, their sophomore back. Really had a nice performance with 123 yards and a touchdown. And then two of my favorite guys, Singer. Jeff and I have talked about Singer from Arizona quite a bit, and I don't think anyone's going to be surprised if he's the best wide receiver there when it's all said and done. But man, he looked great. Had 141 and 3. And then my guy, Keon Coleman from Michigan State, really continuing to ascend and maybe become their best wide receiver, even over Reed and some of the other veteran guys. Jeff, how about you? Do you have anyone else interesting to throw in the ring?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see Singer at the end of your nice long list of names there, but we have talked about him. I've talked about him other spots too. When we were focusing on freshmen, Ted McMillan, or if we're focusing on like the draft class and Jacob Cowan, I feel like Dorian Singer just kind of gets a little bit lost in the shuffle, especially with that class being highlighted by stars like Xavier Worthy and and Marvin Harrison and even Egbuka there. And, it's just, he's getting lost in the shuffle. But every single game that I've watched in Arizona, and I've watched a few of them by now because, again, I'm looking at where do I want to put Cowing in this draft class. And, and it's every single game, like, he's making some play here or there that, it's not like you can't look at Cowie and be like, oh, he's taking over the offense, because you've got these other capable wide receivers, and Singer's just, one of those ones flashing consistently every game. But I did throw my guy down here too. Mo Ibrahim, 36 carries, 159 yards, 3 touchdowns. Just Minnesota just annihilated, 31-0. Like, but Ibrahim is, I mean, he's one of those ones where, like, I don't think you're going to get the draft capital. Like, I don't think you're going to get like all of those sort of satellite metrics that, get players drafted high or get a lot of excitement out, for the, for draft class, for community, for, the rookie dynasty community. But I mean, man, I love the way he plays. And I saw it from like his first game last year against Ohio State when he got injured in the Achilles. And I was just like, dang, it was just depressing because, that's a career killer right there. And then he's come out like this year. I don't think he's had a game he's started in where he's gone under 100 yards. So he's just out there like dominating. And this is just another big game for him. So happy to see Ibrahim like just still doing well. And it'll be really fascinating to see where we go with his off-season sort of journey into the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not sure who it was, but somebody was talking about Ibrahim recently, just in the regards that I guess are speaking highly about how intelligent of a runner he is, right? Just that he makes consistently good, positive decisions, doesn't leave yards on the table. Maybe not the most athletic guy. I mean, we'll find out. I don't think he looks like any kind of, speed freak or anything. But just that he's a smart runner.
Yeah, I think he'll be lucky to crack into day 2 anywhere. Though I think he could, right? I just, I think he's got the nuance in his game down. It's just like, again, it's the size, speed, measurables. Like, he'll have that injury history. There's a bunch of other sort of backs that people are going to drool over for one reason or another. It's when you see like highlight reels, right? Ibrahim's is like a highlight reel that like transitions to, the NFL game. But every other, highlight reel like player, like you see the Sean Tuckers or the Tank Bigsby's or whatever it is, it's because they're having like this amazing, huge space play where they're out in open field and making dynamic moves and stuff.
I think Ibrahim's a tough one too, because his career arc has not been kind to him with the injury, and kind of the COVID year got him to come back, and then he got hurt, and like really he could have declared probably after 2020 when he had a good season, and now he's a fifth year guy with
he's 24 or something as a rookie,
right? Yeah, I mean, if he was in the NFL, we'd already be and even if he was productive, we'd already be talking about you got to sell this guy in Dynasty because he's getting old, but he's still in college, and so it's tough because he is such a solid player. He does nothing but produce whenever he plays. It's just sad that things have just not shaken out well for him as far as, kind of external factors goes. It'll be interesting to see how the NFL values him.
He will always be an underdog and one that I will root for. I don't know, maybe if you heard it, Eric, but I think the NFL Stock Report podcast with God, I know it's handled Tampa Bay Trey. Shoot, I can't remember why I'm blanking on his
Trevor,
name there. Yeah, Trevor Sikkema. Yeah,
okay.
Trevor Sikkema and his co-host there. Like they had profiled him a few weeks back too. Again, just it's the same thing, right? Like it's a lot of the same questions. So I think it's almost like his off-season arc is already written. It's already told. Like we know what he's going to be. I mean, every year we get somebody surprising us with athletic metrics, but I really don't think it's going to be Ibrahim. So we already kind of know exactly what he is. A good runner without any flashy pieces or anything. And I think it's just one of those ones where he's going to be one of those players that like goes into the NFL, underrated as a draft prospect, is one of those annoying pieces on the depth chart that like, the Travis Etiennes of the world can't pass up. It's like a James Robinson kind of guy, right? Who's just too good at like playing the running back position for an NFL team. And he'll probably just kind of be that like usable guy, like, Jamal Williams, all these guys are like good players, right? And, still getting run on teams. I think that's probably what he'll end up being. And it's kind of, I mean, I'm almost already set to it. Like that's what it's going to be. If anything more than that, I'll get like really excited because he was like my flag plant guy, but I don't think we're going to see anything more than that.
Yeah. I think Donta Foreman, right? I think that's the career arc for Ibrahim in the NFL. Well, minus the like egregious injury as a rookie or a sophomore, right? So, all right, guys, let's move into rankings. We're going to talk through our top Devy running backs today, and I'm sorry that I butchered it and left Zach Evans out. I'm not sure how I did that, but it looks like you guys both had Evans as your number 2 back. Is that right? Where was he for you, Jeff?
I put him. Right? I think I got him down at. I think he's at 8, and mostly because of just a few concerns with. I love how he plays. I love his film. I think it's just there's some off-field concerns. There's stuff that's kind of kept him, made his TCU stint, pretty rocky. Right, injuries, I guess, too, and just not being able to really blow up in any of those situations. And then, we thought this year was going to be an amazing year in that offense. And it, like, ostensibly, it would have been like he would have been doing this kind of Jamar Gibbs kind of, breakout where he was just basically the entire offense, except, we have Quinshon Judkins out there, like, just absolutely, like, yeah, I think Noah said it, just like stealing his lunch, basically. And so I don't know how to approach that. So really, what is his draft capital is really what's going to spell it to me. But I put him, behind, one other just absolute, this guy just absolute crushing it this year in Blake Corum, and then just really some of the top names in the 2024 year.
Yeah.
Just because I think that class is looking pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I think that group is tough, right? Those 2024 backs that I think we all see as, pretty darn close to elite, if not elite. And yeah, and then Evans, right? Like I have to say to myself, like, what would Evans' workload look like right now if Judkins wasn't such a freak of nature? You know what I mean? And how much do we ding him for having this guy that looks like he's going to be, probably a top 40 NFL draft pick as his running mate in the backfield? Yeah, so I would still have him. I was thinking about this as we were talking, and I was flicking around. I'd still have him 3, I think, maybe 4. I put him 4 here behind Rocket. I think Rocket's athleticism is, next level with his size. But let's talk at the top. And again, I don't want to steal too much time for this. I'd like to kind of go through it. This is our core segment. But I think that maybe after we talk through the top 10 guys, and I don't even know how much we need to talk about a lot of them. I think we're going to have consensus on. I know you guys both have some Bijan concerns, but obviously not enough to take him out of the number 1 spot. So let's sketch through it. And then after we get through the top 10 guys, let's take a couple people that are specifically most interesting to you, and we'll hit on them, and then we'll get into doing some films. That sound good, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right. Anyone want to launch it off with Bijan?
I mean, we talked about Bijan a lot last week or 2 weeks ago, but Noah's got his. I don't know. We've heard Noah's perspective on it, so let's give him the floor.
Yeah, I've been I think throughout kind of this summer, maybe even going back like a year, I've been a Zach Evans over Bijan guy, just because I think Evans is a little bit more refined as a runner. Bijan is certainly an athletic beast and probably a better pass catcher than Evans. I think the Breece Hall experience has kind of caused me to rethink the way that I'm calibrating athleticism versus, kind of technical skill as a running back. And I think Bijan's athleticism just puts him over the top. Not that Evans isn't an athlete, but whatever flaws Bijan has, I think are small relative to the athletic gifts and just out in space ability that he has. Because from that perspective, there are really no concerns. He can go down the field as a pass catcher. He's big enough to carry the load as a runner. And even if he's not one of these Mark Ingram types who's going to get you 4.5 yards every single carry, you can take a couple 2 and 3 yard runs if you're going to get a 70-yard run later in the game. So, and I think the NFL views him the same way. I think the NFL is going to view him as one of these legitimate, maybe even top half of the first round type of guys. Mm-hmm. And if we're ranking in the context of fantasy football, we certainly have to care about that. So I think Bijan has to be the number 1 guy.
Let me ask you this. Do you guys, I know you do a lot of your work with Campus to Canton. Have you guys been taking the on the field speed measurements for these guys?
I know a couple of the guys there do. That's not something that I have been keeping track of myself. And I'm not sure what speeds Bijan hits. And I do get the sense that he's not a total freak in the way that Saquon was, almost like Saquon light, maybe like Joe Mixon, but
yeah, I don't think Bijan's a straight line burner, to be honest. I bet his explosiveness testing is probably going to be really good just from seeing him. But I think it's more, he's just, has such a great feel of what's going on around him, and he's such a creative runner, I always say, and again, we talked about him a lot a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not going to kill it here, but he's that guy that's going to lose someone in the phone booth, right? We don't see people legitimately do that. We use that term, but I mean, Bijan is just slippery at a huge size, I think in that manner, he's like Saquon, but yeah, I don't think he's going to run a 4.4. I think he's, maybe the top, the slower end of that, or, low 4.5s in terms of top speed. I'd expect decent burst, but I think Evans is going to be faster than him, to be honest. I think Evans will test better. Yeah.
You're talking me back into Evans over Bijan.
I just listening to your reasoning, I totally could get it. You know what I mean? Yeah. For me, I had Bijan first, just because I think that intuitive, creative, just almost gliding, running style he has is just you just don't see it. Like I don't think people can do what he's doing like physically in terms of just like reacting and acting and creating this impossible to tackle running style that he has and just seeing the field. That's where I think I see him set above. Um, so
Yeah,
did anyone have? Well, I guess Noah, you have Gibbs third, but he's a consensus number two. So Jameer Gibbs, Alabama running back, right, by way of TCU, if anyone's listening to this and new to these running backs. Jeff, you want to lead off on Gibbs?
Yeah, Georgia Tech, I think Evans from TCU, right? With Gibbs,
You're right.
It's funny how you talk about Bijan, because I think of Bijan more as like a violent, emphatic, accentuated type runner, not like that smooth glider. And when I see like creativity, I see like Jameer Gibbs have like smooth style, creativity, patience, pacing, and like change in pacing. And then I think his ability out of the backfield is, in my mind, like an edge over Bijan's, mostly because of how he can profile as not just like a pass catcher, but as like a route runner, like as a full-fledged receiver. I mean, like we get a little over our skis when we say, Antonio Gibson was a wide receiver in college, so that means he's should be playing over Curtis Samuel or whatever it is. Like running backs are running backs for a reason. They're not wide receivers for a reason. Like I think somebody did a great plot of like EPA per target or whatever it was about like running backs in the slot and wide receivers in the slot. And it was like with Christian McCaffrey, which is like he's like the best receiving running back we've seen in the league in a decade. And his sort of like EPA per target or whatever it was like online with like average slot receivers. Maybe that's not the right metric, but essentially what they were saying was like the effectiveness, of even the best pass catching running backs are on par with, maybe good NFL wide receivers, but like they're not like elite wide receivers because that's not what they're playing typically. Still, I think Gibbs is going to be immediately one of the better pass catching running backs. My comp, has kind of been Alvin Kamara, and probably because he had that gold helmet on over at Georgia Tech, but just his ability to like like the other week I saw him, essentially be wrapped up by a D lineman and take a hit from a linebacker, and somehow he broke that tackle and got around the corner. Like it's ridiculous stuff that players should not be able to do, and yet like there he is in big moments in big games, like carrying that team. So he's carrying Alabama right now. Their passing game is not what we're used to seeing, and really Gibbs is sort of one of the reasons that their offense hasn't completely bogged down.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, and I totally do agree with you saying where Gibbs gliding, whereas Bijan being a little more like violent and like staccato, right, in his motions. Noah, what's your thoughts on Gibbs? Obviously, you like him a lot too.
Yeah, I love Gibbs, especially as a receiver, and I think particularly as I think the Kamara comp is pretty apt, even though Kamara is really significantly bigger than Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
They just move. Gibbs is much faster, but they just move in the same like weird ways. There was a play, I think it was in the Texas game, where Gibbs is like right at the line of scrimmage, kind of scoots his way past some penetration, and then just ducks down under somebody trying to tackle him, and then throws a dead. It's just like these movements that running backs, it just looks weird on the field because it's uncommon. And Gibbs does the same sorts of things in like dipping his shoulder to kind of shake defenders off that Kamara can do. And he can like, he's unguardable on like an option route over the middle of the field. Like, especially if you got a linebacker on him, it's over. My only concern with Gibbs going to like if we could guarantee that every single running back in the 2023 class was going to go into the NFL and be in the right situation to use them properly and have their abilities utilized in the optimal way, Gibbs would have a pretty good argument at RB1. But I think his skill set is a little bit more dependent on somebody doing that for him than Zach Evans, for example, where he can just play a traditional running back role and be fine. And Gibbs could do that to a certain extent, but in order to be truly maximized, he needs somebody creative, and maybe a team drafting him where he's probably going to be drafted is evidence that that's going to happen anyway. But it's hard to buy into like a super unique guy being used in the way that he needs to, versus we've seen lots of NFL coaches do stupid things. So that's basically where I'm at with him. Love him as a player, a little apprehensive that we're going to see him to his full potential in the NFL.
I think we see that all the time where scheme matters like that. I guess like a follow-up, because I've seen, with Alabama, and I think like with Young sitting out for a game, and, we've seen Gibbs carry the team like on the ground, not necessarily through the air, which is kind of what we saw the first month of this season. Clearly, like if he's deployed as a pass catching weapon, in addition to, a runner, then his ceiling is so much higher. But, is there a specific concern you have, with him as like a, traditional, take a handoff running back? Or
yeah, I think I can kind of come at this from maybe three angles. Number one is that he's small and skinny, and I think we typically don't see NFL teams utilizing those guys as like workhorse runners. I mean, it happened with Jamal Charles, it happened with Chris Johnson. Christian McCaffrey is a little bit bigger than that even. And I do think a legitimate argument could be made that like Gibbs is special enough that we should consider him to be in that like Jamal Charles area. So maybe it doesn't matter, but I think that's one point. The second angle is just in sort of some of the metrics that I like to look at. He hasn't performed on the ground at the same level that you would expect from even like fourth round picks at running back. Like he reaches the threshold of like an NFL quality player, but not special by any means. From like a film perspective, obviously I'm just kind of starting on this journey where I attempt to watch film. And I have been impressed in the few games that I've watched of him. One thing that I've noticed is that and I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it limits him in some situations, I think he knows he's not a powerful guy, and so he therefore doesn't look to use power and like aggression as a runner very often. And sometimes it results in him dancing to find a crease or to avoid contact when he could just put his head down and get a couple yards. And then he ends up getting 0 yards where he could have gotten 2 or 3 in looking for more space. I don't know how that translates just because I don't have a large base of film knowledge, but that's the one kind of nit that I would pick based on what I've seen on film so far.
Yeah, I think those are all really fair. And, I mentioned his contact balance with breaking tackles, but I think you're right, as far as power goes. I have seen him be an aggressor, but like that's more to initiate the contact so he could break a tackle, not necessarily to, just drop a guy to the ground and run him over. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
Do you guys want to throw the film on? I know usually we do the core segment and then the film, but I kind of had planned them to go together a little bit. You guys want to watch a little bit of Gibbs film as we go through this?
Sure.
I mean, we're talking about his film. Let me kick that off.
We might even just be able to like hit the auxiliary points, because I think everybody knows the names, as far as our like other top 10s. It's Zach Evans, right? Like about Zach Evans, it seems like, again, I had my concerns, but like seems like Noah's kind of bought all in on Evans. And I don't know if it's, again, watching his film style or if there's something behind the scenes too that gets you like super stoked about Evans.
Yeah, I haven't yet watched film of Evans myself. I know that like Matt Waldman has some good things to say. He shows out in pretty much all of the metrics that I like to look at from like an analytics perspective. My thing with Evans is he's had such a weird career where he's like in and out of the lineup and at different schools and stuff, but every time he plays, he's awesome. And he looks like a prototype NFL back. And so if we we have these priors that he fits the mold. And even though he's losing touches to Quinshon Judkins right now, I don't think that it doesn't seem to be a bad thing to be worse than Quinshon Judkins. So
Yeah.
I think Evans can still be awesome, even though he's losing touches to a guy that looks like he's going to be a stud.
Well, and I don't even know if he's worse. It's just that Judkins is getting the work, but like Evans looks good on the field alongside him too.
Yeah.
And like he's matching him production from production in like the games where they're getting equal reps. So stuff we're seeing here on Jahmyr Gibbs, we're seeing some burst around the corner, right? I love that stick right there. Did you see that? Boom. Oh, yeah. That's sturdy. We also saw him on that very, very first carry. You know, it was like a 1 yard gain, but those are the ones where you see these guys in traffic, right? And you saw on that very first carry, if you want to go back to the start of the video, Eric, he just like
that one, right?
Yep, just sits in a chair, right? Like
so low,
boom.
spins.
Yeah,
so my favorite thing about Gibbs is I think the same skill that Bijan has of just like predictive movement, right? Like he sees what's going on and he's got a plan to solve it, right?
Yeah, Tennessee like defends that play really well, right? Actually both of these ones here, but like in that first play, you know, they have good backside cleanup, but in undisciplined teams that's not always the case, right? And that's where you've seen Gibbs like break huge plays. Watch the stick.
I mean, that was
just oop.
Just gone.
Oop. You see how he's working that blocker right there on the edge? So he's got the receiver and he's, you know, the defender's got the outside leverage, right? That's where he wants to go. And his blockers kind of got him inside and he just like turns upfield for that stick. And you see the defender try to work back across to get the tackle inside. And it's just boom. He just opens out a lane.
It's a wide receiver throwing that block right there, too.
Yeah. Like, but you see what he's the wide receiver
for the touchdown.
Yeah, you see, I mean, you've got the wide receiver like, you know, holding an out rail, but he makes his wide receiver like look really good. It looks like that wide receiver's manhandling the defender, right? And like turning him into inside, you know, for like an amazing block to spring him to the corner.
Oh, you're right. He feints in and then cuts back out. So he's manipulated the guy there really well.
Do you see the defender react to that stick? And he starts like collapsing inside right there. Yeah, those are the little things where, you know, you talk about manipulation at different levels. And the best will be able to do that type of manipulation or like be able to plan that out and integrate their movements when they're like on multiple levels at the same time. So it's like, you know, how they have their path through the first line and how they're manipulating linebackers, you know, to go in places outside of like they have a target of where they want to go, manipulate the linebackers to go like to feint them into like different lanes, and then you get to hit your hole and then start stringing together your moves for the, you know, for the third line defense for your DBs. And when you talk about Noah, like the types of movements that he does are just weird, right? Like that's an integrated movement solution.
That one right there, you know?
Yeah, rare talents that running back have.
I think one of the ways that serves him best is I also think Alvin Kamara does these same sorts of things, or they serve him in the same way, is especially out in space where you see him like coming, you know, converging with a guy on the sideline. He always has some little move to throw, whether it's like a head fake or a little spin or, you know, just kind of a dead leg. He very rarely takes like direct shots. And I think that's going to help preserve him just because he's able to contort his body in these and manipulate defenders in these subtle ways that
sorry to interrupt, but just
that's dirty.
Oh, that's dirty. I mean, I love that you highlighted that part of Kamara's game too, because every time I've watched 49ers play the Saints back when both were like really good teams, and Kamara always got me because like we'd have these good linebackers and he'd just deke them and like get another 10 yards and then just like step out on the sideline. And you're like, you're right, master at getting an extra 10 yards with just like some weird move that defenders just don't normally see. Oh,
or even that play, that swing pass where he's getting swallowed up by like six guys in the backfield. None of those were hard shots. He could easily just get lit up here by like four people. and
Yeah,
he's
that
able
spin
to
move saves his body.
he's able to shift out of it to kind of preserve himself.
Yeah, we saw that spin move too in the backfield on a carry pitch before that. Whoop. those are the easier, like this one here where he's got, just a defender kind of committed to overrunning. Those are the easier ones that you'll see like a lot of the other players that are going to get hyped in this class make. Like you'll see like a Sean Tucker make that kind of move. Tank can make that kind of move. Like, most players will be able to make that move right there. But still, it's always fun to watch.
Can you go back to the beginning of that play from that last angle we saw?
How do you get through the line?
One?
Yeah, just that little shake on the penetration initially, like right after the handoff. Look at that. Just that fake back to the backside.
Yep.
I wonder if that's as much to deke the DT or even just hit the timing of that crease, right?
Right. Yeah. As the play shifts over, he's just moving himself into it.
Yeah.
I think one of the things about Gibbs though is like from a lot of guys, like that's a jump cut there and they're losing momentum.
Yes.
He doesn't seem to need to do that.
No, I in fact, I feel like jump cuts are an overused tool for some running backs, especially at the college level. And I'm much more impressed when you can make change of direction moves immediately without having to so I can't remember if it was Tank Bigsby that, we were on Twitter highlighting or something with that, or I can't remember who it was or whatever it was, but just one of these players just, oh no, it's Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, as he's taken on the lead for the Seattle Seahawks, can just immediately in stride, just turn his ankle open and turn his hips open, take a step and go from downhill to lateral in a heartbeat and lateral back to downhill in a heartbeat. Like one step, no wasted motion, no jump cuts, no wasted momentum. And then you see how well that translates, right? That's the type of talent and movement that translate on the NFL level. And I mean, we're seeing how good Kenneth Walker is with it. So
yeah, and those are some of you mentioned, I think before we went live, but Matt Waldman talks about those things, like how quickly can you transition from lateral to downhill, and those are the sorts of things that juking a guy might be relative to the level of competition, but how quickly you can transition yourself from going full speed towards the sideline to now exploding upfield. Those are the kinds of things that translate because those are just inherent movements.
Yeah, it translates more often too. It works like kind of a stop jump cut kind of thing can work in some flashy open field places, but being able to do it without the stop and momentum, without the the jump stop, with just opening your hips, that flexibility, pointing that toe, right? If you follow the Matt Waldman kind of saying, how does he point that toe and go downhill? Those you can do in traffic, those you can do behind the line of scrimmage, those you could do with backfield penetration. And it just that's the type of toolbox move that you can deploy more often, more successfully than a full jump stop. If you jump stop and behind the line of scrimmage, you're getting hammered for a loss. You have to keep your momentum, you have to redirect it, but you have to keep that momentum going downhill until you start breaking your move in the open field. So
obviously I kind of moved on to Zach Evans here a little bit. We could probably talk about Gibbs for an hour, right? I don't know if this is
saw a good
decent numbers game for Zach Evans. And, you think Troy, not that tough, but they were in the backfield all night in this game. And, quite a bit of, short yardage or small gains from him. But then he had some nice breakouts too. And this is, I think this was the first game that Quinjon really smashed too, and they both went over 100 yards. But you see, Evans a lot more. His instinct is downhill, right?
Go back 2 or 3 plays here where he goes off tackle near the goal line. Because I want to highlight something that Noah said. Yeah, this play right here. Noah's talking how Gibbs won't do this type thing right here, where he just he finds a crease, he goes off tackle, and he just He knows this is first down, right? He just needs to get closer, right? Like work the team closer to the goal line. He doesn't try to take this outside, take a loss. Just
Right.
he's got the size, he's got the power. He can just go downhill. Like you're right. We don't see Gibbs do that much.
There was
But that's a tool that you
one
saw.
play in that last highlight that Alabama smashed him up the middle, and it's just you see them do it, and it's like, why? That's you're towing a boat with a Ferrari. It's not what you use it for.
He's got a good one of the things I like about Evans is he's got a really good inherent sense of like all of the things that are flying around him. Like he's able to track his offensive linemen, his offensive, like his blockers and the defenders, and multiple trajectories at once.
And this doesn't look like this is going to turn into a long gain,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a beautiful. It doesn't even look like he sees that block in his periphery, and he just completely sets it up with that cut.
So
the one where the player two before that too, where goodness, there you go. There's your transition, right? Downhill to lateral and then back uphill.
Yeah, definitely. And
yeah,
it's size
those are
too,
earned
right?
yards right there.
This is a guy that's 15, 20 pounds heavier than Gibbs, right? And he has that fluidity.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gibbs is a little rarer. But this is it's still something that you're like, oh, it's still a box you're checking here.
What do we view as if you asked me to name them, I'm not sure I could, but I haven't watched the film. What do we view as like the weaknesses to Evans's game? He just seems so complete to me, even if he's not extra special in a lot of ways. He just seems so solid everywhere.
That's kind of my take on him too. I think he's well-rounded. I don't think he has a lot of weaknesses, but I don't think he has an elite trait the way Bijan or Gibbs do that just jumps off at you, right? But I don't know what he doesn't do well. I'm not the guy to talk to about vision and him reading keys. I know Jeff can speak to that a little more than me, but for me, it does seem like he makes the smart decision a lot of the time. You don't see him doubling back in the backfield or trying to bounce something that it shouldn't bounce. Maybe he's not the guy that has the highest like explosive run rate, but I would expect his success rate to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think his rare trait, like I said, is being able to track multiple trajectories at once, right? Like not a lot of players can, and it's not just two, right? It's not like a linebacker and a safety. Like he knows what's coming from his periphery. He knows where all the players, what they're all doing all at once, and knows sort of intuitively, how to break all of the angles simultaneously. Like that's kind of crazy. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we see Zach Evans is like, a great power back here, despite him being, heavier than Gibbs or, I don't think they're that different. Like he's not like that much better between the tackles like that. You're looking for not I use a space player as, more of a sometimes a slight, guys like Eric Gray, for example, I think are electric in space but can't run between the tackles. So not that. Like I think he really can. He knows how to run in traffic, but you're not really asking him to to convert 4th and 2. Not in your traditional sense there. I think that might be my only nitpick. My biggest question, and the reason I kind of have him a little bit lower, is I am just concerned about what the NFL is going to try, like what the NFL is going to see in him and where they're going to try to draft him. Like, I'm not sure that I had a hard time with everyone behind Bijan and Gibbs, to be honest with you. Like I think Corum probably right now has earned higher draft capital. I think Evans is talented on that level though. I just don't know if so. Part of me there is like projecting a little bit of draft capital. I just don't know if it's going to be round 2 or not.
That power concern you mentioned about Evans, do you think that that's so he's big, he's fairly fast and athletic. Do you think it's like a technique issue where he's not getting low enough? Do you think it's an explosiveness issue? Do you think it's a willingness issue?
Probably his decision making, how he tries to win, right? Like, and it's not a fatal flaw at all. It's really just when I look at players, I just want to see how do they win? Like, what do they do on the football field to get yards? You know, you could see a guy like, maybe he's like Derrick Henry, right? Who, Derrick Henry is not necessarily like a hammer. I mean, he can be, but but Derrick Henry is, a big physical freak, not like kind of like the Jerome Bettis, for example, right? Who, if you think about that and like what he used to do and what he was known for, is really just how do players win, right? And Zach Evans kind of chooses to win in different ways, and I think part of that is just the style you are as a runner. So I think, yeah, part of it is a little bit of technique and like leverage and like getting low pads and being able to like sink down, and then just kind of like bench press and like explode out with with strong legs. Very few running backs like actually do everything. I kind of think of like Nick Chubb as a guy who could do everything, but even then you could still point to areas like in the receiving game where I think he's perfectly capable, but again, like as as an athlete, like he's better when he can, he doesn't have to think about catching the ball and transitioning, right? Like when he's taking the handoff, he knows exactly how he's going to get it, and he can plan his attack, from the moment before he gets the football, right? When you're trying to catch a football, you can't really plan your attack before then. Like you have to make sure that you can get the pass and the trajectory of the pass. So, even a guy like Nick Chubb, who is, I think, the most well-rounded runner that we're seeing in football at these days, like has one or two things where, they're, how they win, how they play is like a little bit different. And so for Evans, like it's not at all a fatal flaw or anything about it. Or, I mean, I even highlighted that he had that off tackle where he just kind of dipped his shoulder and pushed forward, 2, 3, 4 yards. I just think, other guys, might have gotten like, 5, 6 yards there, like a Mo Ibrahim, for example, might have been able to like get 5, 6 yards there.
Even Tank would have pushed that further, and they're about the same size, but I think Tank has probably a little bit more of that power drive.
But again, it's not like he's not able to do it. It's not like that wasn't a successful play for him. I think if it's really nitpicking, right? Like if you're telling me like what's the one thing he doesn't do well, like that doesn't mean he doesn't do it. It's just that he's not going to be, the best. Like that's not what he's going to be known for. Like,
yeah,
that's the right way to say it.
All right, let's catch Rocket here. We'll spend 30 minutes on Zach Evans. So it looks like our consensus RB4, if I'm doing this right, was Rocket Sanders of Arkansas, our first 2024 running back. And I'll roll some film of him, but either one of you want to kind of lead off on what you liked best about Rocket?
Go for it, Noah.
I have not watched him. My ranking of him, I know that he's having an awesome season. But basically just the combination of size and pass catching ability is just freaky enough that given how young he is and how successful he's been from a production standpoint already, I think you just have to anticipate that guy becoming a good player in the NFL at the very least in like the Antonio Gibson type mold, and maybe in the David Johnson or, whatever the, the evolution of that kind of archetype is. I think he could fit into that.
Dude, great kind of comp and breakdown. I mean, what you're seeing with Raheem Sanders is kind of what you saw with early Bijan, right? Where, we were just praising.
And this is last year too.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. Perfect. Because this definitely looks like, a guy that
he's better than this now.
Yeah. I had, I saw this kind of going into, on Saturday to Sunday, we do like a preseason sort of rankings list where we, highlight like a kind of like our top 20 names. And, I think Sanders came up a bit, just as a player that we had like watched and we knew was sort of this athletic specimen. But, I'd seen him play like this and it's just like, well, he's really raw. He's still learning. Right. And I think if you start to pull on his tape this year, you start to see him understand and like see growth, right? That's one of the things that worries me about like maybe extremely productive because they were massively, much better athletes than their competition, is that, they never necessarily grow in their understanding of playing the running back position. And the best ones do, right? Like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Bijan's doing that. He's learning, he's getting better, he's refining different skills. We're seeing that with Sanders this year. He's refining skills. Like, you can't take his stats, you can't take his production, his, his massive share of the offense and not project forward that, he's going to have every opportunity to just continue to get better. And so I think we're going to see a guy who's, really well thought of next year. I mean, I think he's worked his way into, everyone's going to talk about Travion Henderson and Braylon Allen. And certainly, like, I think he's just worked his way into that conversation with them for sure.
Yeah. How are his metrics, Noah, and the things you look at?
I mean, he was really good on the ground last year from kind of the aggregate, but on a play-to-play level, he was a little bit inconsistent, which I think tracks with the kind of player we understand him to be. Yeah. Kind of a young guy, probably more athlete than runner, at least last season. But overall, the tools are resulting in good things. And then not much work as a receiver last season, but he was used downfield when he was used. And if I understand correctly, he was a wide receiver at high school, or played there a little bit. And so we kind of knew like this size, speed, pass catching, hypothetical ability could translate. And what you mentioned about production often resulting in guys not developing, I think it helped that as a freshman, he was able to be productive, but he wasn't like the offense. He was part of a committee of like a couple other solid running backs. And so if he wanted to be the guy, like he had to get better. And so I think that probably helped him. I know I was on one of the Campus to Canton shows over the summer and we talked about Raheem Sanders versus Will Shipley. And it kind of ended up being, I mean, it was pretty close. Both of those guys are solid players, but I think we ended up leaning towards Sanders just because there's so much untapped potential. And I think we're seeing that kind of manifest this season where you just have to bet on that kind of guy.
I love that too. The guy that's having immediate success after a position switch, clearly untapped. And even, I love seeing the progression, right? I would have had Shipley ahead of him at the beginning of the season, but after watching what Rocket's done in the SEC over 9 games and against tough defenses and, what I have watched of him, I haven't done a serious film session on him, but
do you have him? Film. Oh, is this a this year one? Because you'll see in that one thing that you might have seen like in that first video was essentially he kind of doesn't look like he's running in control, right? Like he's kind of got
footwork.
Like wild, crazy legs and stuff, just not precise, right? And right. You'll see like as we start getting into this year, you'll just see how he gets like more and more precise and intentional, like with his footwork. It's less about, the initial problem that's you're trying to solve right ahead of you. And now he's starting to think a move or two ahead, right? Like chess, instead of being reactionary to what your opponent's doing, you're able to set some moves up yourself. And I think that's just indicative of a guy who's starting to piece it together.
Yeah. I mean, and the differences that I've seen just from when I'm watching him, he's a lot more efficient with his movement and his footwork this year. Like you said, he seems to be, you can like see him making decisions in that film we just watched and then like lurching like the full body weight over, and you can see that he's gotten a lot smoother this year. And again, I think that's the processing, that's just the muscle memory on the movements and the reads instead of him, seeing, reacting. It's becoming, more fluid and more chained together. So yeah, very excited for him. Braylon Allen, I don't have film for. I'm sure I could pull something up on Vimeo. You guys
Well, I mean,
have
people know
any?
Braylon Allen. I mean, let's see what we have. We have some more film for some guys, I think, a little bit further down too. Plus, I think
Yeah,
we want to get some guys outside of the top 10.
yeah, I would too.
Um,
So, any quick? Can we do 2 minutes on Braylon without turning it into a full show?
it, he's a tank that runs really, really, really fast. Um,
There.
I think I see Noah's a little bit more skeptical on him in his ranks. I'm guessing probably has something to do with some pass catching. Just in general, that might be people's typical concerns. And I usually don't dock that too bad because we talked about it with Gibbs. Like you kind of have to. You kind of have to see like how NFL players will deploy someone because they're not always the smartest. They have their ways and they're not always taking advantage of a player's skill set. So we don't it's more of an incomplete. It's not like he can't do it, it's just that we don't know. Was there any other concerns that you had with him, Noah? Or
I don't think well, I mean, there's obviously the
you had
pass
him
catching.
9, like yeah,
Right.
you still liked him, I'm sure, but just
Yeah, I do like Braylon Allen. Yeah, I think my thoughts are essentially the same as everybody else's. Like he's a big dude who's athletic, and that's probably good. Like he's, probably somewhere on the Deontay Foreman to. I mean, Derrick Henry's obviously like the most evolved.
yeah, but he could be right. Like he
Right.
could
Yeah,
actually.
he's
There's not
somewhere
many.
on that spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, not many can like claim that level of heights, but I think Allen can, and I think we've seen that just this type of player, productive as a freshman year, just bigger, physical, faster, athletic freak, just tends to get viewed pretty well from the NFL circles, right? Like he's going to get good draft capital. I'm not really concerned about that. And it doesn't even really matter at this point, like picking nits as far as like what does one guy do well versus what does the other guy do well. I mean, draft capital plays like 80% of the predictive force of who does better than who at this point. So, that's just, that's why I'm more confident with Allen, is because I just think it's pretty hard to see, unless like injuries or something kind of saps that athleticism. It's kind of hard to see like, his standing in NFL draft circle eyes, like not being there at least on like a top 50-ish pick.
Yeah, I think we saw a pretty similar prospect. Like, I think AJ Dillon was a fairly similar prospect. The comp I landed on over the summer was Beanie Wells, who I think suffered some injuries early in his career, but he was a solid player. He was also like 240 pounds, ran a 4.5. So I think he had a 1,000-yard season as a rookie. So these guys come in and are productive and are useful on NFL teams. And we talk about like DeAndre Swift, is a great player. He doesn't get a lot of goal line looks because there's, a bigger type hammer type guy on the team. NFL teams like those guys. They want somebody in short yardage situations, even if that's all they're using them for. Braylon Allen can be that guy and more. So I think there's a role for his type of guy, even if he doesn't end up being a pass catcher.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna kind of like profile like who's more like Jamal Williams, I mean, I think that's more like Mo Ibrahim, like we talked about earlier. I certainly think Allen, just based on some of his some of the explosions, some of his runs, I think he'll go faster than 4.5 for sure. And I think that puts him more in the profiles of a player like Jonathan Taylor, if he's able to. Again, he's a freshman, so he's sophomore now. I haven't seen a lot of his sophomore film, a lot of his freshman film, but it's really about, in order to get to the heights of a Derrick Henry, he's going to have to learn how to translate his running skill, like running abilities, into just completely annihilating, out physicaling defenders into the ground. Like, and not just, not just D2 players basically, but, NFL athletes. Like he's going to have to be able to, stiff arm Alabama linebackers into the ground. That's the kind, that's how he would beat Derrick Henry. He's going to have to learn how to, like he'll never be shifty, but I don't think Jonathan Taylor's shifty either, right? It's how is he able to be evasive at top speed? translate power into contact balance and back into power and speed again after that. You know, those are things that we don't see now, right? So you can't just like pencil him in as like your next Jonathan Taylor level player. But like, I think that with his size and speed, you know, that outcome is there, that, and I don't think a lot of other players have that ability.
If we put the sort of the betting line on his career or his skill set by the, 5 years into his NFL career, 3 years, if we put the over under at AJ Dillon, do you think he's better than that or worse than that?
I think he's better than that.
Yeah, I was a big AJ Dillon fan because I love the footwork. I think he will be better than AJ Dillon. But I think in general, just because everybody tends to get overly optimistic, like I think you set the line really realistic. I think others will set the line as Jonathan Taylor or Jonathan Taylor light. And I'll always, even if it's like half a Jonathan Taylor, I'd probably bet the under, just because there's always
that's a tall ask.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways that like players. I mean, we saw AJ Dillon. Like AJ Dillon had played really well as a rookie, had a lot of hype going in, and like players' careers are never just this rocket ship to the moon. Like some are, but even Jonathan Taylor's isn't, right? Like we thought that was a rocket ship to the moon, right? And like it's not this hunky dory season for him this year.
And even as a rookie, if Jonathan Taylor had been coached by like a Bruce Arians those first 4 weeks, who knows if he would have even seen the field the rest of the season?
Yeah. Yeah. So I just it's a thing to watch, I think. I'm certainly higher on Braylon Allen, mostly because again, in that one, I'm projecting a little bit that the growth will be there. I mean, we hate to helmet scout, but like, we've seen Wisconsin churn out good running backs and players that know how to play the game. Same way that we see Ohio State wide receivers, come out NFL ready too. I think you have to factor that in at least a little bit, as well as like when you just talk about his traits and tools. I'm more likely to bet from college to the NFL, at least, that he's going to have a good profile. Where I would be worried about him hitting an AJ Dillon level or, Jonathan Taylor light or whatever ceiling or over under you want to put him in is the NFL level, because it's really hard to project that leap. I think he's going to be fine from a collegiate level, and I think he's going to get drafted high. It's after that I don't know how I would be able to project the 5 years into his pro career.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think he's a guy we've seen growth from already too, and I love seeing that, And then the only other thing, I don't want to spend any more time on Braylon's. I do like when, say, the kid from Clemson transferred last year, right? And he was playing very well before Braylon came in, and when he got hurt later, before Braylon came in and really took over. And I like that, being able to see, like, here's what a really good college back looks like, the kid that transferred, and then here's what a guy that's a next level talent over that looks like, and seeing the difference between them, and really being able to look at that in the numbers and on the film. So I think at this point, because we're already over 60 minutes and we've got a fraction of the way through what we'd like to do, do you guys just want to take a couple more people and talk them through it all?
Well, here's a question.
I don't have any Henderson tape. I might. And honestly, I
whose tape do you got?
Collectively lower on Henderson than anyone I play with, right? Like, he still goes at the 102 in Campus to Canton startups. Like this week he did, or last week in a startup for me. So maybe we should just try to kind of glide through these next couple of guys with a quick comment.
Where's the next tape that you want to throw on? Because I love like, we're sitting here watching.
Well, I was just rolling some Shipley while you guys were talking about Braylon, and watching Shipley after Sanders, I was like, I really got to get in and grind some 2022 Sanders, because 2022 Shipley looks really good, man. He's got some talent.
We've seen Shipley at his best be, like a top 3-4 kind of guy in these rankings. I just don't know that we've seen it on a consistent level.
He took over that game last week. And this game was, a lot of the same thing. I think this was the first game that DJU really started to play a little bit better, but still he wasn't slinging the ball. I mean, they leaned on Shipley and Maffa to get through this one. And, one thing that stuck out to me here watching Shipley was his contact balance. He's that one play where he gets hit in the backfield and he gets hit again. And it's the third guy that takes him down. It's this one he's tripped again. It takes 4 guys to, finally take him down. And this definitely explosive, gets up to speed really quickly. Really, they're riding him like a workhorse too.
I just have no grasp on what I think of Shipley. Like, you could convince me that he's Max Borghi. You could convince me he's Aaron Jones. I don't know. I don't know what I'm looking at here. Like, does he just catch swing passes and kind of get to the edge and make a guy? I don't know. Like, I think you could justify putting him at RB5 or RB20.
Yeah, I don't know that I see Shipley as a player with a complete game. Like Gibbs, I think, has a complete game. You know how you're concerned with Gibbs, Noah, was like how an NFL offense like might utilize him and that could like limit his ceiling. Like,
Yeah.
I think that could not just limit the ceiling of Shipley, but obliterate his floor if he was tried, like if he was deployed incorrectly. Because, if you have a complete game, no matter what an NFL offense tries to do with you, you'll at least find some success. But like, for example, ETN, right? Like, I don't think ETN has a complete game. And then, the way that we've seen, like, this is how we've seen ETN basically used, right? And it's basically get him into space. And I know he just had a massive game this morning, but I haven't gotten a chance to like put eyes because I'm not waking up at 6:30 to watch the Jaguars play, even if my wife's from Jacksonville and a fan. But, that doesn't mean they're bad players or even bad like fantasy picks or anything like that. It just means that they have less avenues to be successful players. I don't know that I've seen Shipley be like a complete guy.
All right.
What's your guys' words?
I feel like that's what a lot of people think about Shipley too. A lot of trades, but I've heard that comment before with him. Not a complete game yet.
Who's the next one you wanted to hit? And while you're finding
I'd love to watch some Tank. Do you guys want to watch some Tank?
Sure.
I think we're both, still fairly high on him. All 3 of us. Our consensus number 10. Quorum is snuck ahead of him. Oh wait, no, he's consensus number 8, right behind Shipley. And I was watching him the other day, and I'd love your take on it. It was a game from a couple weeks ago that I ripped, and I thought there were some things that were really admirable in his game. I thought you saw a lot of burst and explosiveness out of him, and I can't quite tell if like something's not working right with the blocking scheme or if he's making some really bad decisions. But there's plays where it looks like like an outside zone where he should be going with the blockers, and he just like bounces it back. And I don't know. Interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, that first play was nice to like get through the whole. I mean, on a whole, from what I've seen from Tank, like I think he does suffer from like consistent decision making at times. But then again, like I've also seen him. I was talking about like the way that Kenneth Walker can instantly go downhill to like lateral, and I've seen Tank make those plays, right? It's just like for example there, like I don't know that trying to get the corner there was like really a good idea or not.
Right.
I'd have to like again, when I watch kind of for my own purposes of like how do I feel about this player, what did they do well, was this a good decision or not, like I'm going back and forth like the left arrow, like back 5 seconds,
Yeah.
and then I just like frame by frame it with the space bar, go pause, next move, pause, next move, pause, next move. Like what is each step doing? What is each, like, what's the frame by frame that, he's seeing with the defense, right? Like where does the linebacker commit to the hole? And did he influence that, or did he, or is he taking advantage of that? Right. And
I mean,
just little pieces like that, but
you definitely tell he's looking at the A gap and it's just collapsed on him, and then bounce outside, and I feel like sometimes when you get these guys pressing and bouncing when they shouldn't be and stuff like that, at least with Tank, I mean that he's been the engine of this offense. They don't have anything else going on, and he wants to win. I feel like it's kind of like when you see the QB start playing hero ball because the defense can't keep up, or there's no run game.
What I don't like is how he takes 3 chop steps and like sits in the chair and stops. You know,
there's a lot of that.
He just puts himself as a sitting duck right there, rather than just hit it. Just hit it right there,
or press to the outside, make that guy in the hole follow you, and then cut back inside that block.
Yeah, possibly.
Something.
Like get creative. I think he just kind of got frozen. Maybe he's more of a flow player, because he's had like really good games, and then he also just nice.
The explosiveness
I don't know if that was. I don't know if that was sort of like an intentional play design, to like let some backfield pressure go through and get some numbers up on the second level. Like trap plays, wham plays, kind of play that way a little bit, right? Like you saw one of my favorite like game tapes was when I saw San Francisco do that to Aaron Donald just over and over again. You'd just get the penetration, you just like slam use check into the side of them, and then you just have this massive hole, for the running backs to go through. So I don't know if we were kind of seeing that a little bit, but yeah, I think maybe like where I was going was like, maybe Tank's like more of like a flow player, right? Where, like you said, if he's pressing too hard, he's not making, good enough decisions. He's not playing within his game. He just doesn't have the feel for it. But like any player that you just like, you just kind of see those like wide receivers or something, and they're just like always open, unstoppable, whatever it is. Like maybe he's like a flow player there, and like other things have to be going right, because like if he goes to say a terrible franchise and he's got like no support with playmakers around him, his offensive line just tends to get outmatched, like he may not be successful at the NFL level. But if he's got the right environment around him, he could be one of those ones who absolutely explode and erupt and do well.
I think he kind of reminds me of. Oh, go ahead, Noah.
No, I was going to ask for if either of you had a comp. So it sounds like you're on that track right now.
Yeah. So in watching this, and honestly, I posted some stuff on Twitter, and from looking at some stats with his too, I was kind of starting to see him as a David Montgomery type in a lot of ways, because just he is physical. I think he's got a lot of power, and he's a tackle shedder. And he's
maybe like collegiate Montgomery.
What's up?
Because I think collegiate Montgomery, because I think Montgomery as like a 3rd year, 4th year NFL player is a much better player.
He's a much better player, right? But don't
like you
think
see less of this type of stuff here. And I don't even know if I would call this like, I'm like, is this a good decision or not? But at least it's like incredibly creative, like not something that I would have seen coming, like I don't know if that's a good decision or not. I keep watching it over and over and over again.
Right,
but
right.
Like he clearly made that
whole
work.
Game. I watched this game like 10 times. Just, but yeah, that's where I was going. Like college, early career Montgomery, right? Where like his yards after contact were always ridiculous, but he was always getting a hand on him, either because he was slow to read the situation or just didn't have the burst to really get by a guy and create an angle. And I think I'm seeing a lot of that from Tank, but I think Tank is faster than Montgomery. I think he's a little more explosive and a little faster. I think he'll test better.
So go back to that play. Like actually, even just these back to back, I don't know if, yeah.
What you do, like clearly it's a gap play, right?
Well,
and he's supposed to hit.
His offensive line is beat, right? Like
they're just crushed.
The defenders are 3 yards back now, and multiple of them.
This guy gets pushed into him. He trips on him.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know. Whenever I see a guy go backwards, I find that like really difficult. But
there's a lot of linemen on the ground in this film.
It is.
Is the Auburn offensive line known to be bad?
This Auburn offense
I mean,
is
we could
bad,
look it
dude.
up on Football Outsiders, but it's from watching this game. There are very few plays that are successfully blocked.
Yeah, we saw
I
that
mean,
one where they kind of like, I think it was intentional that they kind of like let some backfield pressure and they climbed to the second level. So we saw that one go well. And I think when the play is blocked well, like this was a good well blocked play, right? Go back one more. Yeah, watch.
Yeah.
Yep.
right? That's the gap he
And again, they
wants.
let that edge go free. They let him get too much penetration. You know, you get downhill as a runner, and this is a great way to stretch out an extra 20 yards there, right there.
Was that a zone play that he was just bailing out the back end?
I don't know if this is zone. Let me see. Let me see.
When you get the tight end going right uphill, there's no one
Yeah,
wrapping him.
it's kind of more like a counter, maybe. I'm not the one with
Like
like
counter,
expert.
usually have two guys coming across with pull blocks on the counter.
Well, he's got two pullers here, right there.
Right, maybe they
Like,
just didn't come from the other
yeah,
side of the formation.
yeah. I mean, it's clearly one where they want to get the entire defense going that way. I think this is designed backside, just because you got those lead blockers out there who stop, right? Like, like they watch them just sit there. I don't know. Maybe it's a misdirection, and they do want to go kind of.
Yeah, the rest of the line blocks like it's his own play.
Yeah.
Or is it a read for the quarterback to follow those kind of jet motion guys, and he just ends up giving to Tank, and he takes that track?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, it does look like a read play. I mean, you see a gap right there. I think Tank's a really good open field runner. I don't know that he's got it, you know, all dialed in as like a disciplined runner. I think he can get there though. Like maybe for me, my comp would, it's not necessarily physically or style wise, but like maybe more like Cam Akers, right? You know,
Yeah.
a guy with like lots of tools who, you know, is still trying to piece things together and who clearly had no help, you know, in the environment around him to kind of refine that. And it's sort of just survive at all costs and make something happen. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would have loved to see what Cam Akers would have eventually become had he not had that injury. But
Yeah, it's depressing to think about.
but because I think in like that would have helped us give an idea of like, okay, what can we expect for Tank too, right? Like he's gonna come in, he's gonna come in with some gaps in his game, right? Like you know, the bigger question then is like, can he kind of fill those in when he's a pro? And then some players do. Like some players grow a ton as a pro.
You guys want to try to hit one more person? I mean, we got almost through our top 10. Is there anyone else? I got some Quorum films. If you guys want to look at that, I do love Quorum. I'm not ranking him as aggressively as you yet, Jeff, but he's definitely growing on me. And actually, Noah, you have him at 4, huh?
Yeah, I think I'd put. I'm increasingly a Corum guy, and I think I would have him in a tier with like Evans and Gibbs, at least in the 23 class.
I think I'm starting to think the
Put
NFL thinks like you do too. You're seeing him pop up on the like not dynasty, not like fantasy football, but NFL draft scouts a lot. Whereas I got one of his really big games, that like 250-yard game.
He's taken over too. Like the start of the year was kind of a split with Donovan Edwards still.
And I think Edwards is a good player.
He is. He's on my list for Devy here. But Corum is like clearly, I think he's taken a step. Like his game has taken a step.
And Haskins was there last year, and Corum had almost 1,000 yards.
Yep. And Corum was a more like a less complete, like a more narrowly like talent, like skilled player last year. And then this year, I think we're seeing just a more like a well-rounded game. And that happens, man. Like Kenneth Walker was not this amazing profile as, as a junior or as a sophomore, right? And then like he transfers, he goes to Michigan State, and everything around just kind of like clicks. I mean, part of it was the Michigan State like environment and offensive line, but like part of it was just like, Walker was able to grow as a player, right? Like he wasn't a great player at Wake or wherever he was before. I think, once he got to Michigan State, like he was able, like we're talking about with Tank, right? Like, sometimes like just a change in environment where like things are good around you, helps you go ahead and like, access different parts of your game that like, and actually try things and like them be successful, rather than just kind of trying to run for your life half the time.
I like that Corum's put on weight too. They're listing him at 210 now. I mean,
Yeah, he's
we'll
a
see what that
tank.
says when. What'd you
He
say?
gets tackled. He gets hit by that linebacker. That's a good play by the linebacker, though. You like to
Corum
see him
is-
get a stiff arm in there, right? You'd like to see him get a
for
stiff
sure.
arm in there, but that's a good, like the linebacker's good play downhill. I play IDP. I like that. I like watching some of the defense sometimes.
Yeah, I watched a couple Corum games. They're so much fun. He's just so compact
Oh,
and
yeah.
quick and physical.
I like when you can make evasive maneuvers as a downhill runner. Like this guy, right? Like watch this. It's just watch how he evades on second level without at all sacrificing going downhill. Like I like that. That's gonna go well.
Yeah, I think this is about where he just starts breaking off 20 and 30-yard gains. Sorry, I got some non-quorum plays in here.
That's
Sleeping on the edit.
Oof. Hard
I'm
to-
kind of surprised by how much he gets hit in the backfield. I don't remember him getting hit in the backfield that much, but
Players handling backfield pressure is, I love watching those plays because you learn so much about a player in those like just 3-yard gains. Maybe they're 10-yard gains or maybe they're big plays, but like you just learn so much about a player in that like 0 to -3-yard window.
there were some good plays by him earlier where you could see him like wanting to bounce it and then just cutting back in and taking the yard or two, which I do like that.
Yeah, I don't think he should have even tried to get outside on that one, but
No, he should have just.
but at least he didn't compound his mistake by like continuing to go like lateral and backwards, which you do see sometimes. 3rd and 4. Go back to that one again. Let's see it. This is a big play here. All right. I don't know that he's reading that.
I feel like there's a different hole that was better if he went.
Yeah,
oh,
I don't. It's leverage. It's leverage here, and I don't know. Maybe the DT kind of stunted away, and that kind of ruined his initial plan. So like right there, you see the DT stunting inside, like with that twist. Maybe he wasn't kind of reading that. No, that leverage was always there. He should have gone left.
Yeah, that backside.
It looks like if he went left there, he had a nice hole.
Yeah, and this is what you see, like how a player handles backfield pressure too. Like I wouldn't be too shocked if like backfield pressure kind of gets to him and he's not able to handle it as well as other backs, just based on this play right here. Like he needs to be able to read that penetration right there and where the leverage is.
I feel like he's staring that hole down from the second he gets the ball.
Yeah, he's got to
considers.
You've got to read the leverage on the blocks, right? Like he's got options. Like it's not like this is like a single option play here. I think he's got to be able to kind of read that leverage, like not only the inside DT, but like the edge wins their leverage there too, and he's going right into the to the teeth of the DNs and the DT's leverage. And he like credit to him to be able to like take that decision and like make the most of it and get 3-4 yard, like 3-ish yards and be able to, have Michigan go ahead and go for it again here and like make a decision to go 4th and 1. Like that, like credit to him there. But yeah, I think he would have picked up the first down if he was able to read the leverage well. And that's sort of decision making, right? Vision, right? That's what we talk about, like vision with backs.
If you go back to that play before, where he's out on the edge, I mean, he's not making. No. This one here, I think. I like it. He doesn't make this guy miss. He just puts his head down and,
Yeah, I don't
get
think
out
he's
of my
gonna
way,
make
get
that.
out of my way
Yeah,
out in the open field. I like that.
yeah. He knows he's dead to rights. Like he's not gonna juke that defender.
Yeah, just
So just drive him backwards. How many?
yeah, make him not
he
want
got-
to tackle you.
He got like 4 more yards just by deciding to just go straight into his chest there.
Yeah. On a 2nd and 1 too. He's already succeeded.
Yeah, he's got the
you know what I
first down.
mean?
He knows what he needs to do. That's just yards. That's maximizing your yards after contact. Like, just
What about
maximizing
this?
the yards in the game.
What's going on here? Supposed to go outside.
I think he just needs to get downhill faster.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Why is he trying to
Yeah, I'm not even sure what he's trying to do.
to
there.
get the guy to bite?
I mean, he's got it there, right? Like just go downhill.
Just smashes it in.
Yeah, right now he seems to be like a much more lateral player than
Even there, I feel like he had a hole earlier, right?
I mean,
Right
it seems
there.
like he likes cutting it. He likes stretching it and then cutting downhill. So like I think he'd be good for like outside zone plays. Because that's sort of what he's trying to do is like read the cutback. But but that's like more of a trying to maximize some space stuff here. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, seeing this, I don't know that this is his strongest game here. I mean, he might have had just massive stats, but that 4th and 1 play was just, the defense selling out to stop 4th and 1, and 2 players losing their battle against the O-line and having a massive gap for Corum just run through. No one else there to fit it, like no linebackers, no safeties to fit it. So yeah, there's some stuff here that like I would tick as negatives. Like I don't think this is his best game.
Yeah. I don't know if this is the one where you got like 240 yards either. It could have been a different one. Maybe I have a couple Quorum games on here.
We've seen some big chunks on it, like we that 4th and 1 run, we've seen some big chunks, but
this is the game where he had 240.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of, it seems like he's got a lot of runs with, a couple yards, right? And then really padding it with those explosive. And I think that's one of the strengths of him, right? Is like he does have that top end gear, and he does have a talent for making people miss one-on-one in the open field. So he's turning those 20-yard gains into 30 and 40-yard gains. And I think, that's
so I love what he's doing in the 4th quarter here. Like he's got the context well. Like he understands, what the objective is. In grinding those, like the 8 plays before that, that touchdown run there. The 8 plays before it's like, hey, look, we just need a grind out clock. So like, let's get the first down. So 2nd and 3, good decision, just kind of like, just hit it. I think he's making good decisions there. Yeah. I mean, it was even like the 4 plays before that, even there. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the hard thing for me is like, I don't think seeing this game, I'd put him over Zach Evans. And I might have, but I might have to adjust that again.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to look at what.
Yeah,
I don't get eyes on every game, and it's really hard to take a look at what Corum's done, it's hard. You look at the stats on their season, you just like look at the seasons they're having, and like Corum is having like a massive season, and seemingly earning praise and draft capital, especially when, I mean, I like the depth, I like the talent of the players in this running back class, but I have no idea how it's going to shake out behind Bijan and Gibbs. Like absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
Right. Like it could be Charbonnet, it could be A-Chain, it could be Corum. Yeah. Who knows?
Oh man, if it's Charbonnet, like I'll go up a wall, man. I'm not the biggest fan. Like I think the scheme there is really, really helping him. Like it's like catered right to his skill set, and it's just great. Like I love like seeing someone like highlight a player's skills, but I don't see the athleticism. I cut
one of his games up this weekend, man. He's at 220, he's got some explosiveness, man, and he seems to consistently make good decisions too. So I don't think we have time. We're at 90
Yeah.
minutes.
We
You
said
guys got
AJ.
stuff to do.
We said AJ Dillon for someone, but I think Charbonnet is like AJ Dillon, but without the nice footwork. That's kind of like how I'd put it.
Watch the game I got on there. I think his
I will.
footwork has really improved. I wonder if that's not something that he went back for, specific goals to improve his draft stock. I think there's a reason he's having consistent. Last year it was like a couple blow up games, and then like games where he'd have 15 carries for 40 yards, right? You're not really seeing that this year. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's scheme stuff that's probably over my head to evaluate, but I think he's improved, and then like Noah was saying, they've got him more involved in the passing game than he was last year as well. So,
do we have time to circle back on one underrated player before my computer dies?
Yes.
We talked about A-Chain. We talked about other players that I think we've got the names and we know them well. Sean Tucker, look at the list. I think it's kind of, it's really well aggregated, but Deuce Vaughn, man, I think he was buried down there. You talk about Bijan making people miss in a phone booth, and I think Bijan makes people miss in a parking lot. Deuce Vaughn makes people miss in a phone booth, man. You'd look at his size, you'd look at his you wouldn't think of him as this phenomenal inside runner, and he can get through traffic like nobody else. We talked about Evans, I think, tracking a bunch of different people in all these different trajectories. I think Deuce does that even better from a sense that Evans can read that with the defenders 5-10 yards away and understand where they're converging. Deuce can do that when defenders are within a yard's reach of him and understand, just when to shift it, shift a half. It's almost like Tom Brady navigating the pocket. How he's not he's anything special from an athlete, but he just never seems to have defenders get a clean hit on him to knock him down or anything. That's what Deuce Vaughn through traffic. But then he has burst and speed to actually once the flat goes down around him and there's an opening, he just has the burst and speed to just shoot through that. He's one of my other favorite players in this class that, again, I don't think the draft capital is going to be there, but I think from a talented runner perspective, he's phenomenal, man.
It was, what's he in the draft? A 5th rounder, a 6th rounder? But, he's the kind of guy that you probably, if you're playing Dynasty, that you probably want to use, a 4th round pick on, a 5th round pick on, in case he gets a satellite role and, is able to earn some carries like that. If he gets a 5th or 6th round, I don't even know.
Yeah.
I mean,
maybe I misspelled his name, but your thingy doesn't have it there. I think I have him at 14 or something here.
Yeah, you do.
And so I love him. And Tariq Cohen was a high 4th, right? And I think Tariq Cohen was jittery and jukey in space, right? But I think Deuce Vaughn can be Tariq Cohen.
Yeah.
All at all levels and all spots of the field, inside too. I think he's a better player than Tariq Cohen. I think someone's gonna pick Vaughn in the 3rd round, and it's gonna surprise a couple people.
No,
because it's gonna be a team that wants to use him as a weapon, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I said no to James Cook too, and that happened. But I think he's certainly. I'm not saying he's James Cook. I think he's a better player. But
he's also 25 pounds lighter than James Cook.
Yeah,
I know he's mini. I mean, if Deuce Vaughn gets round 3, then is A-Chain a round 2 guy?
I think he could.
I think A-Chain's a round 2 guy. Well, I mean, who's the tiny receiver that the Rams took? Tutu Atwell. Yeah. I mean, Deuce Vaughn. I think I tweeted about him yesterday. Why can't he just be Tariq Cohen? Even if that's all an NFL team wants to do with him, right? Let him return punts, let him, run angle routes out of the backfield. Why can't he do that?
And Cohen
just kill it in the NFL.
Yeah, Cohen was good. We kind of lose track because of the injuries, but he was actually a playmaker for Chicago and a good one, right?
Yeah.
One that would way better than Velus Jones, right? And Velus Jones was a day 2 pick, right? I tell you now, it's a different NFL, and Mo Ibrahim is not going to have that level of weapon for a team. He's not getting day 2 draft capital. I do think A-Chain and Vaughn will. And I would take Vaughn and A-Chain 10 times out of 10 over Charbonnet.
If
I
you're an
think
NFL team or in
yeah. Well,
yeah.
and both. Well, both. Like honestly, like I end of the day, like once the draft happens and draft capital's applied, like I might have Charbonnet over them in like rookie ranks, just depending on like where things shake out. But like, yeah, you tell me I'm running an NFL franchise and I can pick one of these players. Like I would pick A-Chain and Vaughn because they have special traits. And then I would just pick like a Thumper or like a Mo Ibrahim or something in round 4, round 5. Like
yeah,
I don't think
those guys are a dime a dozen. A-Chain is not.
Yeah. Like Charbonnet, like I don't think he's bringing anything special.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We'll see where the NFL does, though. That's the biggest question. What does the NFL think? But I mean, what was it? Not even Kadarius Toney, but Wan'Dale, right? Wan'Dale Robinson, pick 44, right? Like it's a different NFL these days, man. And these players are like they're going to get some attention from savvy front offices, and whether that works or not is different, right? Like we're not seeing James Cook pan out right now, so whether that works or not is a different story. But they're going to see them as a weapon that's going to be much more valuable than a Sony Michel type player, right? Like Zach Charbonnet is a Sony Michel type player.
I think the NFL is warmed up to the undersized wide receiver. I'm not sure they've really warmed up to the undersized running back. I mean, past like 200 pounds yet. We haven't seen it. Even when I was going to say earlier I thought Sincere McCormick was a pretty good player, not like a superstar, but he didn't even get drafted. I really thought he'd get like 6 or 7 capital and come in as a satellite back. And it just makes me nervous for these guys. I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you guys think Sincere was bad?
We need to get Puka Williams on the phone.
Yeah, that's a good cautionary tale there, like the Puka Williams. But again, like Puka Williams, he was great in space. But again, like I don't think he has the traits and skills that A-Chain and Vaughn have. Like again, I'm telling you, like Vaughn is one of the best interior runners in this class. Like straight up. He won't be in the NFL because we're not going to run a 175-pound back up the middle. Like you get murdered. Like Aaron Donald would eat him. Like he'd like come back with like a shark attack, But yeah, I think he'll be great on draws and stuff. But that being said, like I still think, like Puka Williams was not a great like instinctual runner, right? Like really good player, really great athlete. Could make people miss for sure. Just not on like. Then this is where like I think traits of like not just watching like highlight tapes and like kind of understanding like what a player is on a macro level, but understanding like how they win and what they're able to do and like how they're like different elements of their game that like pop. Like no one's going to say Vaughn is a great interior runner. I'm going to say that because I've watched it. Like I've watched him go through traffic like that, but no one's going to say that because they're going to see 175 pounds and they're going to immediately dismiss it. And again, like I could say that, and I can also say like I don't think he's going to get used in the NFL that way, but that doesn't mean like he's a great interior runner. That means he's got these traits, right? That will translate in other parts of the game, right? Like put him in a screen game, right? Like he would destroy on a screen game, right? Like I love what Noah said about those option routes. Like linebackers will not cover him.
Yeah. I mean, get him in a hybrid role, have him run some angle routes and, out in the flat. All right. I think we get to move on from our RB rankings. I will post them. I will post them in the Twitter thread where I drop this. So anyone that's interested can get our full top 25 for the consensus of the three of us. And of course, all the film is on my YouTube page that we looked at, and we'll link that as well. So we had a couple more sections I'm going to get through real quick. And I don't know if Noah, are you playing in C2C leagues?
I am not.
Okay.
No.
All right. So one of the things I do every week is a C2C waiver segment. So I'll throw some guys out there. Usually got a little bit of help from Jake and Kyle, who are a little more on the degenerate tip like me. But there's some guys that I want to touch on that we've kind of glossed over here that are really, for me, more like Devy type C2C guys. One of the big ones is J. Michael Sturdivant from Cal. He's taken over the receiving game there over the past month. On leagues with limited waivers, he still might be out there, and he shouldn't be. And I'd say the same thing about one of my stars of the week, Keon Coleman, sophomore from Michigan State. Super athlete, basketball player as well, and you can see it on his film. And if he's out there, he's a guy that's going to be a stud and has NFL potential, and at least will be the focal point of that passing offense for the next couple of years. One other guy that could be in that bucket that I don't know much about yet is Colby Young from Miami. Xavier Restrepo was kind of the guy there at the beginning of the year, but Colby Young has had at least 8 targets over the past 3 weeks. So he seems to be taking over, the focal point of that offense there. And then the one other guy I had here, it's kind of interesting, was ECU's Marlon Gunn. He was a 4-star running back or high 3-star at a G5 school. He had a really nice game this week and kind of has been drawing some eyes from people that know what they're talking about. So he's kind of an interesting pickup for you there. And then one college football, fantasy football pickup I had, or, if you're a contender in a CDC and you got one last waiver run, is Alex Adams of Akron. He's had 2 back-to-back games with over 30 fantasy points in a PPR league. So really rich pickup there. And he's sophomore, I think. So he's a guy that's still going to be playable next year. And then, guys, this is something I'd love some feedback from Noah and Jeff on. We do a trade of the week every week. And usually it's just you guys picking on me for a trade that I did. And this week, the trade that I have, because I have been beginning to aggressively pursue Jalen Hyatt, I know that there's still, some thoughts that maybe he's just getting schemed up by Hoople, by Josh Hoople. And how do we say his name right? Heupel and Heupel, right? And but I think the speed is real. I think he's got an NFL future. So I offered one of my friends that we're in a lot of CDCs with, Dane Key from Kentucky, Sky Moore, Damari Alston, who's a freshman at Auburn, good running back, for Jalen Hyatt. And this is, mind you, a game that a league that I'm in a playoff contender in, and I want the production on my starting lineup. What do you guys think?
You're looking for like college production.
I'm looking for college production, and I'm starting to think that he's going to have an NFL future if he continues doing this. He's definitely a 4-3 guy. I don't see, Tyquan Thornton got drafted in the 2nd round last year.
Yeah, I'm a big Sky Moore guy. I can't quit Sky Moore, but I think if you're looking for production on the college side of a C2C, Hyatt's probably an excellent target for that.
You think Sky Moore still has a breakout ahead of him into an NFL superstar or just into a competent NFL player?
I think we can hope for, I don't know, could he be Cole Beasley? Could he be Deontay Johnson? Maybe. I don't know. He needs to put together something during this rookie season, but I think the skill set is there if he can, get on the field. They keep trading for receivers, so who knows?
Yeah, that it says something about what they think of him. I mean, I think Deontay broke out as a rookie a bit, and I do want to see that. Like, if I don't see them breaking out as rookies, I'm usually okay, like, re-rolling the dice. And I'm not like sold on Jalen Hyatt's potential transition to the NFL either, but like, you're at least going to get like another half a season of college production out of him. And like, once you look at this at the, the end of, like, if you look at this 10 years down the road, you're like, okay, like, this was a dud bust on both sides, except I got 5 games out of Jalen Hyatt, and that helped my college team or something. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think like I've got like alarms for Sky Moore, but that's certainly not to say, like, it's not like Kadarius Toney is some like slam dunk to break out, right? Like, he might even be inactive, right? Like, it's just, they might be like see him as a reclamation project, and if he doesn't like convert himself, like, if he doesn't get it on the, like, he couldn't get on board in the Giants, like, if he can't get on board in KC, like, it's kind of done,
And you can cash out on Jalen Hyatt during the
Yeah.
like pre-draft process if
Yeah.
you want. You know, if you're not confident in his NFL future, you could just
Right.
treat this as a rental.
Yeah.
I think he's getting drafted. I don't know if he's going to be successful in the NFL, right? Because I do think there's a really valid concern with him being just schemed open and just playing against DBs that can't keep up with him. But
He does
even
already
if it's
seem
bad-
like
Go ahead.
sorry. He does already seem like one of those guys who's almost like a Gabe Davis, where there's going to be
Mhm.
like super fans and then people who are like absolutely not touching him. And so even if, you get your 5 games of production, wherever you fall on that spectrum, there's going to be somebody who's a Jalen Hyatt guy who you could, trade him to.
Or, he's, like you said, kind of schemed open kind of player, like get the right spot, or he's Gabe Davis, like that's
Yeah.
certainly a splash player that, like, even if he's sort of like a 4th round pick, that doesn't mean like he could still be a splash player depending on how deep that league is. That, he's kind of on the bench of your roster, but every now and then he finds himself like, useful for a couple home runs,
Yeah. There's going to be some NFL teams looking for a deep threat next year, and I'm
Definitely.
putting my chips on that right now.
All right, guys. My toddler just woke up. I gotta go.
Yeah. All right. Any parting shots, Noah?
No, this was fun. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Again, you can find us on Twitter at EKBaller, my friend Jeff at the Sofa Scout, Noah at No More Parties, spelled like Noah. And we'll sign off on this episode of the Devy Dose. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, it was great getting on with you guys. See ya.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, thanks, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. Hope to see you on again soon.
Yeah, for sure, man. Appreciate it.